first of all, thank you all so very much for joining us tonight. What a beautiful, beautiful day and a beautiful location. Thank you to Susie. I'm not sure where you are, so much for this gorgeous, gorgeous place. We're so lucky to be here. If you'd all help me thank Susie for this beautiful location. Wonderful food, incredible company, good cold drinks. That's always really important. So thank you for that. I'm gonna read some notes only because there is so much history and so many special things that we want to remember. I don't want to forget any of it. This is not the first Grace Wright Humanitarian Award. It's our second time we're giving this award. The first one was to Dr. Couch a couple of years ago. But yes, beautiful. You have to know just a little bit of history before we give this award. So on February 14th, 1967, Valentine's Day, how appropriate, Planned Parenthood opened not only its first center in Watertown, it opened its doors locally to a candid public conversation on the once taboo topic of contraception. And it offered low-income women in the North Country birth control services that were only available to those who could afford them. So concerned clergy and physicians met in the early 1960s to discuss establishing a family planning clinic in the North Country. So in 1965, Reverend Graham Hodges, pastor of Emmanuel Congregational Church, who chaired the Social Concerns Committee of the Jefferson County Council of Churches, decided to organize a Planned Parenthood. So he appointed Reverend Blaine Hartford from All Souls as chairman of the committee to study the family planning issues in northern New York. So this was right after Griswold versus Connecticut, which struck down the ban against this prescription sale or use of contraceptions for the first time and said that women have a constitutional right to birth control. Thank you, yeah! Thank you. I think it's really funny. Reverend Hodges said, up until then, obtaining condoms was like a bootlegging operation. So the first Planned Parenthood clinic was located on the ground floor of the former Visiting Nurses Association building at 135 Park Place in Watertown. And one patient was seen on that first day. The clinic had a staff of 2. Its first executive director was Janet Somerville, who we are thrilled to have with us today. The agency's first medical director was Watertown physician Dr. Alan Ball, and its first members of the board included Dr. Barton Van Slyke and board president and Hope Metcalf, who is also with us today. They served, as did other assisting volunteers, without pay and as an act of personal conviction. Incorporated in 1970, Planned Parenthood became an affiliate of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. On the national stage, President Nixon signed into law Title X of the Public Health Services Act, which gave us money for family planning services on a sliding fee scale. Now, if you haven't turned into the news lately, we're on a slight pause with the Title X program because our current administration has decided that Planned Parenthood shouldn't get Title X money. And Title X money is that money that lets us serve anyone who does not have insurance or who are underinsured or who cannot afford birth control. So keep your eyes tuned when it comes to November and remember everything that you hear tonight. Planned Parenthood of the North Country today has administrative offices in Watertown and Plattsburgh. That's where our 2 largest health centers are. We have 5 additional centers in Lowville, Canton, Ogdensburg, Malone, and Saranac Lake. We have 80 administrative and healthcare professionals. We see nearly 8,000 patients a year and 14,000 visits. We have a robust education, outreach, and sexual assault services department and a strong advocacy and fundraising arm, which you are all a part of. So thank you very much for being here tonight. So that's where we are today. We've grown by leaps and bounds. We've helped folks plan their families. We've provided real access for women and families because we all know that without access, there is no choice. And the driving force for all of this has been a group of compassionate, dedicated volunteers, many of whom are with us here tonight. For Grace Wright, the spirit to help others was a family way of life. In 1983, our Watertown Health Center was dedicated to Mary Gamble Atkinson, wife of Dr. Walter Sidney Atkinson and mother to Grace. Mrs. Atkinson was a former volunteer for the Jefferson County Maternal Health Center, and she and her husband were both longtime supporters of Planned Parenthood. Gay, however, took it to the next level. Besides her work with Planned Parenthood, she gave of her time and talents to the Potsdam College Foundation Board, Samaritan Medical Center, Northern New York Community Foundation, the Red Cross, United Way, Hospice, and the Historical Society, just to name a few. As a Planned Parenthood volunteer, Gay served as the Jefferson County Chairman and the 4-County Vice President of the board from 1971 to 1978. Tonight, we are honored to welcome the third generation of her family support. Joining us are her children, Charles and Walter, and their families. So thank you for being here. So when I think of how Grace spent much of her life, I think how fortunate we are to have people like her who so generously share their time and talents with the world around them. Gay led by example, showing others the value of service and selflessness in person every day. And that's who true humanitarians are. Exceptional individuals with extraordinary commitment and selfless dedication to enriching the lives of others. So it's exactly right and fitting that Planned Parenthood's Humanitarian Award honors the very special Grace Atkinson Wright. So again, I want to make sure we recognize some of our special guests. We have Jan Somerville, the first executive director. We have Hope Metcalf, member of the first board. Tom and Mabel Walker, who helped us purchase the first center in Watertown. And of course, our honoree, Dr. Van Slyke, and his beautiful wife, Ann. So tonight we're giving the Grace Wright Humanitarian Award tonight to Dr. Barton Van Slyke. Many of you know Dr. Van Slyke from his many years of practice. A native of Gouverneur, Dr. Van Slyke has spent his life helping others. He entered the Army in August 1943 with the majority of his time spent in Europe. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge, the last major German offensive on the Western Front during World War II. He was discharged in 1946 at the rank of Private First Class and received a number of accolades, including a Good Conduct Ribbon and 2 stars on his European Theater Ribbon. After leaving the service, Dr. Van Slyke went to medical school at the University of Rochester. He first worked as a general practitioner in Gouverneur and then as a radiologist at Samaritan Medical Center in Watertown before retiring in 1988. Medicine and working to improve the health of the people in the North Country is something that is important not just to Dr. Van Slyke, but also to other members of his family, including his wife, Anna Jane, who was a former nurse. Together, they raised 2 sons and have been married for more than 6 decades. In the early 1960s, That's right. Dr. Van Slyke's desire to serve our community is evident in the way he consistently makes giving back to others a priority. Throughout his lifetime, he's been active in a number of local organizations, including the Boy Scouts, where he achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, Rotary and local theater. He's received the Alan F. Guttmacher Award and the Medical Staff President's Award for the House of the Good Shepherd and Samaritan Keep Home. He's also a member of the New York State Veterans Hall of Fame. He's been a champion for women's health and an advocate for reproductive choice for more than 60 years. He served for many years on Planned Parenthood's Board of Directors and Affiliate Medical Committee, and as acting medical director for several months in 1978. Dr. Van Slyke provided us with a folder of some really wonderful memories, some letters and some scripts of some things that he had written to local newspapers and radios. And I found a copy of a letter that he wrote to Planned Parenthood in 1992, commemorating our 25th anniversary. He said, "Congratulations to Planned Parenthood on the anniversary of the opening of your first clinic. Even though through the years there have been those who have been critical of our goals, I personally feel that of all the nonprofit charitable organizations, Planned Parenthood is at the head of the list in serving our community, our nation, and the world in improving our quality of life with wanted children and world population control. Although I'm unable to attend your commemoration, you have my heartfelt congratulations for a job well done." Well, Dr. Van Slyke, you're here with us tonight, and I want to say to you, you have our heartfelt appreciation for everything that you've done. Your passion and your dedication have made it possible for us to advance basic human rights, and we cannot do it without incredibly dedicated, committed people like you. So thank you. We honor you, and I think you have somebody who wants to say a few words. Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. Great.
I want to thank Planned Parenthood of Northern New York for the honor of being a recipient of the Grace Wright Human Award. Gay Wright and I were longtime members of this very important organization. I first felt the need for population control in the late 1950s, at which time I was in a private medical practice in Governor. In 1957, I had a patient who was in her late 20s and had 7 children. And she wanted to get a tubal ligation. At that time, we had only condoms and diaphragms for contraception. I called repeatedly to physicians in Governor, in St. Lawrence County, and where I lived at the time, and particularly in Watertown, and found no one who was willing to do this procedure. I failed in helping this patient. Graham Hodges, a minister in Watertown, who was just talked about, called me in 1966 after he knew I was interested in speaking publicly about family planning. The first board of directors of Planned Parenthood was elected that year, and here we are, 53 years later, working hard to provide all kinds of sexual and reproductive health care and education for women and men. Thank you. Thank you for this award. Appreciate it. I remember Gay Wright's friendship and support. It is heartwarming to see so many friends and so many workers and staff here today. Thank you very much.